What's up, guys? So, tonight I was exploring the wonderful world of the internet, and for some reason, I stumbled upon something that I realize I never think about, and that is the fact that marriage is not as simple as I guess most of us believe it is. And by that, I mean that usually when I personally think about marriage, it's like, oh, sure, it's the time when I get together with a man and then we agree upon just sharing a life together. What the hell does it mean to share a life together? Well, finances, living together, the possibility of procreation, yada yada yada. But then somehow, I don't even know how I ended up in this freaking little article, but there was a suggested topic talking about 10 different types of marriages, and I was like, types of marriages? How come I don't think about this? How come no one really talks about this? So I thought that I would do a stream on that just to explore the many different possibilities and see if any of you guys would practice any of these, have practiced any of these, or would consider practicing any of these, or are curious about any of this. So, for starters, the first one that I see is open marriages. And open marriages, there might seem to be no logic behind a marriage of the sort, but it is true that open marriages exist. Both of these partners are consented by each other to go ahead and hold extramarital affairs without fearing the interference of the other. In a way, the partners are allowing each other to indulge in sexual infidelity, that it simply is mutual. Hence, this causes no tension and conflicts between the two. One explanation for this could be the mutual disagreement of marrying each other, and as a result of allowing each other to live freely sans the intricate shackles of matrimony. So, my initial reaction to that is just like the first sentence suggested. What is the point of you getting married if you're not going to be loyal to one person? I would think that that is an inherent part of marriage because I just do not have any interest in sharing my partner. So I guess it depends on your values on that one, but there is just no way that I would be down for that. But I guess it's people may want to be recognized legally as a couple, perhaps to get certain benefits, like I don't know, something about taxes or owning property. But at the same time, I don't know, as someone who attaches significance to stuff like intimacy, I don't need to be messing with other people, and other people do not need to be messing with my husband. So there's polygamy, which may be seen as a step ahead of open marriages. The man or the wife is allowed to marry more than one person, even in the presence of the other. Some religions, like Islam, give consent to such a form of marriage where a man is allowed to marry 3 to 4 times. In Mauritius, I have never pronounced that before. Muslim men may choose to marry up to 3 to 4 times, but their wives, apart from the first one, will not be given the status of a wife as per the law. However, the practices is not seen as legal in the eyes of the law. In countries that annul such marriages, polygamy there becomes a crime, that is, bigamy. And that makes sense because to me that sounds like an insurance scam. It's like, okay, I would expect that you're settling down with one person to build resources with one person, but then you have so many extensions. I guess in a sense, I can counter that by saying, well, just because one business has one name doesn't mean that one business cannot own another. And that's what marriage is. Marriage is a business. But at the same time, it's like, just don't treat this like a business. But you cannot help but treat it like a business because of the implications it has. But, anyways, uh, avunculate marriages? I definitely know what that means, but I have never said that before. The partners of avunculate marriages are bound with a genetic relationship. Within this, a man can marry his niece or a lady can marry her nephew. This was a common practice in the royal families of Europe, of course, and we all know how that turned out. and was meant to preserve the family blood from being soiled by anyone from outside the family by entering into a marriage alliance with them. They rather preferred marrying off daughters to their second or third cousins or even uncles. It might be seen as a form of incest by many people, but there are societies even today that are practicing such marriages and see no harm in it. Well, for me personally, that is just absolutely grotesque, disgusting, weird, nasty. I would not participate in that. I do not comprehend that. I do not wish to comprehend that. And I think it's time that we moved on from that because I think it's weird. Like, it's just weird. Like, you're going after your relative. Like, what is that? Hang on. I'm gonna try something. What am I looking for? Oh, yeah. This is just not cooperating with me. This is seriously going to play an ad right on my face. Anyways, um, let's see. This looks so different from what I'm used to. And I see someone has joined. Hello, voice of Snake Eyes. How do you feel about my hair tonight? It has gotten even longer than before. I know you're a fan of it, so that's why I bring that up. Let's see. Where did I stop? Ah. There is something called the Boston marriage. With the huge outcry of the legalization of homosexual marriages within the several places in the USA, people have been really happy with the decision, for it marks a coming of a new era. But it would be startling and amazing to know that homosexual, particularly lesbian marriages, were legalized in Boston around late 19th century itself. I was not aware of that. Not only were women free to marry the woman they loved, but also have a sexual relationship with them. Things were modern even back then. It was not as popular as it is now. That definitely, I don't want to say I want to look into it, but I have so many questions that I'm not even going to ask because, in the grand scheme of things, I don't really care. Leverett, Leverett, Leverett. I'm pretty sure it's Leverett. Leverett marriage. Within a levirate marriage, a widow is to marry her dead husband's brother. This is a method to ensure that the widowed bride of the family stays in the family. It is thus that an unmarried brother of the deceased husband is asked to step forward and marry the girl. If there comes a child out of this kind of matrimony, then he or she would be considered the child of the deceased husband and not the present one. So the main purpose of such a marriage becomes to replace the place of the dead husband in a bride's life. The replacement might be impractical, but it is not considered so in theory. So just like the Boston marriage, that would definitely never work for me. So a levirate marriage would definitely not work for me either, because it's like, dude, if you are the brother of my husband, first of all, what guarantees me that my husband is going to have a brother? That's the first thing. What's going to come after the brother? Like the cousin or something? But, anyways, it's just weird to me that I am bound to the brother. What if the brother and I are completely incompatible? What if we just. It doesn't make sense for us to be together, you know? Like, when someone who you're with just dies, it's like you need to somehow start over. But at the same time, I see that the point of this is to keep you in the family. It's like a royal type of incest going on, except that this is not incest because you're not sharing the same genetic information. It's just the brother who's sharing the genetic information of your deceased husband. But just get a new fucking person. I mean, I don't know. I just cannot imagine thinking that way for this to work for me. No. Like, if my husband dies, it's like, okay, sucker, you're gone. So, like, if there is a chance for me to rebuild my life, it's going to be with someone I genuinely like, not with someone who's just part of your family just because family reasons. That's just not a good enough reason for me to do that. So yeah, you guys let me know how you feel about that one. I think it's weird. Weird as hell. Posthumous marriage. One of the partners is deceased. It could be the widow marrying her dead fiance or a widower marrying his dead fiance. It is a legal practice in France, Sudan, and China. This kind of marriage originated in the 1950s when a dam broke, killing 400 people in France. In the list of the dead was a man named André Capra, who was engaged to Irene Jodard. Before his death, the latter requested the French president to allow her to proceed with the marriage, and within months, she was allowed to marry her dead fiance. It became legal to marry a deceased to be husband or to be wife in France by Article 171. So let me get this straight. You're going to get married just to be considered a widow and then move on with your life as a widow, but you still took the step to get married. But then French people are weird, man. And they're like distant family of mine too. Like I cannot wrap my head around that at all. Like once again, if my husband or boyfriend, whatever, has the misfortune of dying, it's like, alright, you're gone. You're dead. You're no good for me now. So like, just no. Always lovely. I appreciate that. And it is a way to keep the wealth and power in the family. Yeah, like yeah, that was about the Leverett marriage. I get that, I really do, but like, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm about by now. I just cannot roll with that. I guess I don't put so much value to that stuff that I cannot imagine functioning in this matter, you know? Like I don't like to be bound by business deals. See what I mean? So, like, the wealth of the family, sure. Like, generations before me, and maybe even myself, I may have contributed to building up the wealth or whatever, but, like, so what? Just let it go. If you're no good for me, you're just no good for me. But then again, I possess this mentality because the culture of our country allows it, but other places just value things a little differently. But levirate marriages, of course, I'm not saying that's not something that doesn't happen in the United States, but I just think it's weird that you allow for yourself to be tied up by those things. I just cannot think that way. Uh let's see, where was I at? Oh yeah, and yeah, marrying your dead fiance, it's like if you don't make it to the wedding day, then you just don't. I'm not going to bother requesting that you be validated as my spouse posthumously when the whole point of getting married is for you to enjoy the other person. So yeah, just no. No. Hypergamy and hypogamy. I think it means social status stuff. Hypergamy is the practice of marrying someone with the purpose of moving up on the social ladder. It could be a rise in terms of caste or even social position. This kind of marriage is particularly on a decline in the modern times, and it can be attributed to financial independence and stability at large. The opposite of hypergamy becomes hypogamy, that is, marrying a person of low social status. The decision to be in hypogamy could be voluntarily and even forced. There is no way that someone is going to force me into marrying up or marrying down. It's like when I think about getting married, I only care about financial compatibility. And what financial compatibility means to me is that you are able to conduct your life independently before I get to your life, in the same manner that I hope you expect that I can handle my finances independently before and after meeting you. But if I am going to get married to someone just to improve my financial status, that is just asking for disaster. Because it's like, you know that I have that interest and I'm looking at you as my savior, but then let's say that something happens to you. I am left in such a vulnerable state because you were the one supplying the wealth, and now I have to handle that mess. Like, let's assume that you decide that you don't want to leave anything behind for me. Then what happens to me? It's like I have not been practicing on how to be autonomous. And then if you do decide to leave me your stuff, it's like just because you're handing your stuff down to me when you die doesn't mean that I am set for life. I have to know how to invest that shit and how to save that shit. So when it comes to hypergamy, when I look for a partner, that's not something that I am looking for. I'm not looking for someone who is a bum, of course, but I'm not thinking, oh yeah, you're definitely the best partner for me because I'm going to be marrying up. Or no, I'm going to marry down if I, get together with you. Like, no, I want to be happy. And the way for me to be happy is to make sure that the very basics are met, and then anything else that's cool in life that we can afford, that can come later with time. But to me, the most important thing is that we are responsible members of society first, and then the other goodies can take place. Like, I'm just overly simplistic. I know that every time I make one of these topics, it's like I'm flying through it, but seriously, that's just the way I look at life, and I'm all right with that. I don't have to be thinking about like a house or something. I was thinking the other day about how I am not even thinking about buying a house. And I'm like, what makes me not want to buy a house? And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. I like to move. I like to move a lot. If I go somewhere and I don't like it, I like to be able to pack up and go and not feel tied to some area just because I have property there. Like, this is a big place, a big planet, and I feel like I should be freely roaming it. And I know that property can be something good to leave behind for offspring, but it's just not in my radar like that. Besides, I'm not even thinking about procreating right now or at all with the way things are going. So I cannot conceive me being involved in that. So let me see what the folks are saying in the comments. I understand your thought process on it, but keeping your family status was all important once upon a time. It is an outdated way of thinking. Yes and no, I think. Yeah, like that's why I like to be as self aware of that as possible. It's like I am thinking that way now because I'm a modern person. That stuff is not taught, it's not valued, it's not how we are raised. And in a sense, it's like, thank God, because when I think about it, I feel like life is much better now from that point of view, except on the instances where relationships are not lasting, divorce rates are going up for no reason, and I don't think that we are as good at parenting as we used to be. So yeah, you're right. I can side with you on that one. I think people should marry and to start family, like having kids. Points are well said. Marrying for money is a bad idea. If you're my wife, all that was mine becomes yours and our children. My family personally would operate on that level. Living in a house is overrated. I'm in the process of getting out of the one I am in now. Interesting. Yeah, I have heard that. I have heard some people say that they kind of regret investing in a house only because they have other plans that they find more suitable, say traveling, and then they keep investing this money in a mortgage. And let's say that you decide that all of a sudden you don't like the surrounding area that you're in, and you have to go through all this process of selling and finding a realtor or something. What do you call that person? Is it a realtor? But anyways, um, so yeah, you guys know me. The less stress, the less stuff I have to deal with, the better. And for me, I feel like a house would just complicate things. Um, And it's like investing. I know absolutely nothing about it, so I know absolutely nothing about owning a house, even though my mother actually does own a house. But we just don't live by it. And thank God, because I just don't have any interest in my hometown. Common law marriage. It is an informal marriage where the couple considers themselves married with respect to a legal framework in a limited number of jurisdictions. The marriage is, however, not recorded formally, that is, by a state. It is not to be confused with a live in relationship where the couple refuses to consider each other as a spouse and also are not recognized as married by any framework. A common law marriage is not registered as a civil marriage. So I'm guessing this is pretend that you're married and you are conducting yourselves as if you are married, but you are not actually legitimately married. The fuck? Okay. Themselves, the marriage is, however, not recorded formally, that is by a state. Hmm. Okay, yeah, that's what the first sentence says. Considers themselves married with respect to a legal framework. I guess it's you would be like say you would be behaving yourself accountable for things. Like say if I were to lease an apartment, you're co-signing it with me because you feel like you're part of it. I don't know. I am not good at this. I should not be thinking about getting married. I am not thinking about getting married. Most people don't think about the overhead of living in a house, property taxes, maintenance, etc. It gets to be a real pain. Yeah, maintenance. That's one of the things that turns me off. It's like absolutely anything that breaks, that has to completely come from me. And trust me, I am not going to be thinking about having a budget for that stuff. So, the cool thing about, let's see, how can I illustrate my point? Let's say car insurance. I am glad that that is something that is required by law because I independently would not be thinking about setting money aside for accidents. And on top of that, even if I were setting money aside for accidents, let's say that I can set aside money for accidents at a rate of $20 per paycheck. And let's say that an accident costs $150,000 to compensate for like medical bills, replace a car, all that stuff. See what I mean? That would ruin me for the rest of my life because at a rate of me setting aside $20 per paycheck, let's say that I only accumulate $1,000 and then the damage for that one accident, let's say that it's $150,000. So I am glad that insurance exists because at least even though it's a lifelong bill, it is worth it to pay for it because you're not being ruined entirely. See what I mean? Unless you just mess yourself up physically, but that is a consequence of the accident. It's not a financial thing like what I'm trying to illustrate. So with a house, it's like I'm not going to be thinking about setting aside money for maintenance. So with apartments, that is part of the rent. It's like when something gets messed up around here, all I do is dial maintenance and they come and fix it. And I don't have to like write them a check for their little service. Like the one maintenance issue that I have most often is that my drain tends to get clogged. All he has to do is pour down some acid and boom, it's done. So that is included in my rent. Whereas I don't have to be stressing over the fact that maybe every 2 months or so I have that problem. So so in a sense I'm glad that I don't own a house because there's no way that I would be able to budget all that stuff. See what I mean? And even if I had the paycheck for it, again, the fewer things in life that I have, the better. So, but anyways, hopefully you guys saw what I was trying to say there. um, Common law marriage is real. Most people do not think about the overhead. And so, okay. So, yeah, property taxes. That is something that I have no idea how it works, but if it's anything like income tax, I hope that it's something that you can set an allowance for and then you don't have to pay as much. But if it's like a car where you have like a, yeah, a car is income, or not, sorry, fuck. A car is property tax. So it's pretty much set. So yeah, there's no way I could be thinking about all the bills that are included in a house. It's like you have your utilities, which would be electricity, water, I guess gas in some instances. What else? And insurance, you know, home insurance. And then you're mentioning the property taxes, the maintenance. And just, I just don't have time for maintenance for a house like that. Unless I live in a tiny ass house, I just cannot imagine me doing all that. Oh yeah, believe me, when weed roots destroy your pipeline and they have to dig to replace the whole line, I'm out of here. For property tax, it's either every 6 months or every year tyranny, in my opinion. Yeah, damn, why does there need to be property tax like that? It's insane. They just, you have no chance whatsoever at just saving money or making money or keeping money. See what I mean? But anyways, you guys, um, let's proceed. Another type of marriage is sororate marriage. This can be one of the reasons why feminists across ages have felt excessive rage. The man, on having discovered his wife as infertile, is free to marry or have sexual relationships with his sister in law in order to beget a child. The status of a woman through such practice reduces to that of a child carrying vessel. The man is also allowed to go ahead and marry his sister in law in case of his wife's death. This is done with the intention of carrying forth with the familial bonds between the two families. There's just no way that would work for me because I ain't got no sister. Teen marriage. As the name suggests, teen marriage involves the marriage of a couple where one or both partners are in their teen years. Wait, so you're trying to say that if for some reason I am just different from what I am now, let's say that there's this fucking 40-year-old guy who I am saying I'm alright with marrying, and I am like 17, 18 years old. Let's say 18 years old for the sake of keeping it legal, like in legal terms. I guess you can you only consent to get laid at age 16, or can you also consent to get married at 16 with your parents' permission? How does that work? Because I kind of forget. It's not something I'm thinking about. But yeah, it's like you're telling me this is a teenage marriage when I'm involved with an old ass guy? No! That is, I'm marrying my father. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I hate that they call it teen marriage. I think teen marriage should be both partners are teenagers. There could be several reasons attributed to a teen marriage and societal pressure in certain cultures to wed the daughter as soon as she turns a major is a significant factor. There are yet many there are yet several and diverse forms of marriage which we might never have heard of or even never will in the future. Like, yeah, in my experience with this stream, honestly, I saw a problem with every single one of them. So maybe that means that marriage just isn't right for me. Sometimes I think that. Sometimes I feel marriage being a social construct, I tend to want to question it. Like it feels like a dream, like every girl's dream. Like, oh sure, I want to get married because I just want to have a guy in my life, and you know. But when you think critically about what it means under certain circumstances, it's kind of complicated. Like, there are people who marry for religious reasons. I definitely am not affiliated to any religion like that. So I cannot say, oh yeah, I'm going to be marrying out of being a Jew, out of being Catholic, Islamic, or whatever that is. So that would definitely not apply to me. I guess another reason people may opt for getting married would be for financial reasons. So, like, oh yeah, the hypergamy stuff. It's like, no, it doesn't work with me at all. So, I guess marriage for me, now that I think about it after reading all this, it's like, why would I think about getting married? You know? It just doesn't make sense. But maybe the reason it's not making sense to me is because I'm not thinking about it, because I know it's not the right time. I am not prepared. So, but anyways, it's always interesting to just explore that mess. If you're going to own property, buy vacant lots. All you really have to do is cut the grass once or twice a year. I have heard a lot about people who are trying to uh to do that. People are interested in just owning up land, and makes sense, but someone with a strange name says try to burp. No, don't tell me what to do. And then 16 to consent, but 18 to marry in most states. Aha, that's what I thought. When I was a teen, I used to get that so mixed up for some reason. I'm like, consent, marriage, why would you, what? And the reason I was confused is because I am personally waiting for, like, I have always been waiting for marriage to do the deed. So I guess that's what made me confused. But yeah, nowadays I just don't think about it like that. Um Ideally I would wait until marriage, but now that I think about the meaning of marriage, it's like I cannot say that I can wait for marriage to do the deed, because it's probably not going to happen. So what I mean is not going to happen is the marriage part. And I feel like things are just changing to where people do not look at marriage in the same way. So, you know, I don't know. I'll have to, let's see. I'm going to do some quick researching real quick. I'm going to do a quick search, see if I can find an answer to a question. Let's see. I know I saw it on another form. Oh god, that is a lot. Civil marriage, religious marriage, recognized by state, sanctioned under religious law. Oh, fantastic. This is dividing it by continent. Americas and Europe. See, the thing about it is that European values are pretty much similar to ours, because like we were founded upon European values. We were just disagreeing with some king ages ago. Formally presumed to be monogamous. Oh my, this phone is having a seizure. Uh, it's doing that thing where when you scroll, it goes like crazy. Interracial, interracial, interracial marriage is no longer forbidden. Remaining single by choice is increasingly viewed as socially acceptable, and there is less pressure on young couples to marry. Marriage is no longer obligatory. There was a time when marriage was obligatory. Fuck me. Marriages are more likely to be a product of mutual love rather than economic necessity or a formal arrangement among families. Yeah, I remember that one time when I was doing a stream about arranged marriages, and I was like, hell no. Which, in a sense, arranged marriages are not that bad, but again, I do not like to feel like I am being, like, decisions are being made for me. If I'm a grown ass person, I should be able to make grown ass decisions. And I think whom I marry and who I get laid with and make children with should be my own individual choice. So Just because you have been observing someone for a long ass time and then I grow up and you think that that person is the best for me because it'll benefit the whole family doesn't mean that you have to endorse that responsibility to me. It's weird. Let's see. In some jurisdictions, property acquired since marriage is not owned by the title holder. This property is considered marital and to be divided among the spouses by community property law or equitable distribution via the courts. Spouses may no longer physically abuse their partners and women retain their legal rights upon marriage. In most countries, rape within marriage is illegal and can be punished. Out of wedlock children have the same rights of support as legitimate children. Both spouses have a formal duty of spousal support in the event of divorce, no longer the husband. Sweet. There emerged a difference for maternal custody of children after divorce, as custody was more often settled based on the interest of the child rather than strictly awarding custody to the parent of greater financial means. Cool. In Asia and Africa, marital rape is legal in most parts of Africa and Asia alike. See, that's what I'm saying. When it comes to the Western world, why are we so like enraged about things and demanding rights that we already have? I'm like, other countries are the ones that may need feminism, but that is only if the other countries do so desire. Like, women in the East, do they think like we think? Probably not. So maybe what we think is a horrendous thing, I don't want to say that they're okay with it because, say, if I were getting physically beat up, it's going to hurt me as a Western woman just as bad as it's going to hurt me as an Eastern woman because, I got pain receptors. But when I think about it, it's like their way of valuing family and traditions is just different. So when I look at it like that, that's when I'm like, okay, feminism would be beneficial for some individuals, but if these individuals are not actively seeking that, is it our duty to go out there and rescue them? Or is there rescuing to be done? See what I mean? Like, I don't want to make this sound like I am agreeing with those things because I'm not. I am an American, so like I cannot imagine what it's like to be living under those circumstances. I can imagine it. It would be awful for me. But what if these cultures are fine with it? So when we try to intervene by bringing our values, American and European values, into these other countries, why are we disrupting that? Um, are they actively trying to disrupt our way of life, or are they just reacting to the fact that we were trying to impose our values on them? See what I mean? So you guys let me know what you think about that, what I just said. Because not everyone in my social circle thinks the same way. Um, but there are some folks who do think like me. Child marriage is legal in most parts of Africa and Asia alike. And when it comes to child marriage, I do think it's messed up because, of course, we are all about protect children and their innocence. But I feel like ages ago, you used to mature at a far earlier age. Like, I feel like we had stuff like child labor and stuff. So when did we become, I guess, soft about this? Like, again, I don't want to say that child uh, marriage, that stuff is considered abuse now. See what I mean? But like in other countries, this is okay. So when you think about it, these countries tend to have an awful lot of discipline as well. Like they don't have some of the problems that we have because we have a greater sense of freedom. Like these are places that have discipline when it comes to dieting, discipline when it comes to a family life, discipline when it comes to handling jobs, getting an education. So is it really as bad as we portray it to be, as we sense it to be? Again, you guys feel free to interject. Arranged marriage is prevalent in many parts of Africa and Asia alike, especially in rural regions. Same sex marriage is illegal in most parts of Africa and Asia alike. And see, You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but Africa and Asia are those places that struggle with stuff like suicide? It's like they're poorer nations on average, but yet they don't have a lot of the problems of first world countries. See what I mean? Polygamy is illegal in many parts of Africa and Asia, but tends to be illegal in most. No, sorry. Polygamy is legal in many parts of Africa and Asia, but tends to be illegal in most communist countries and legal in most Muslim countries. Divorce is legal in all parts of in Africa and Asia, but wives seeking divorce have fewer legal rights than husbands in Muslim countries, than communist countries. And see, that is something that I was bringing up. I think I brought this up on my arranged marriage stream the first time around. And that was someone was telling me that arranged marriages are cool and that marriages that were arranged tend to last longer. And I'm like, countries that have arranged marriages usually are countries where women do not have many rights. Therefore, logical conclusion has to be it must be ever increasingly difficult for a woman to initiate a divorce. Just because a marriage is lasting a long time doesn't mean that it's a happy one, a perfect one, a functioning one, in the same manner that just because you have been in a relationship with someone for a long time doesn't mean that the relationship is perfect, building, great, amazing. You know? So until someone can answer that question for me of, oh, it's just as easy for a woman to initiate divorce as in the individual who I was sustaining this conversation with, when I asked that question of, how easy is it for a woman to start divorce? It was like, oh, well, on that one, see, I don't know. And I'm like, well, why are you thinking that arranged marriages are cool when I can counter it by bringing that, uh, what is it, inconsistency up? So, but anyways, again, it all depends on what you value and what you don't value. Let me see what you lovely guys are saying in the comments. Um, someone says, try. I want to make a donation. Feel free. What Western culture has shown is that too much freedom, especially for women, is a detriment to society. And I agree with that. And the reason I agree with that is because I think that we need discipline. Let's take the body, for example. Do you think that this does not come with a set of rules? If you eat a shit ton of sugar, you're going to get diabetes and die, and get huge and fat and just mess up your body, not get nutrients. You're going to, if you survive, you're going to end up disabled at the very least. So if you don't have balance and discipline, like say exercise regularly, your body's not going to function like it's supposed to. So same thing with the stuff that is abstract. Just because you cannot touch something doesn't mean that you shouldn't practice it or it's not there. So with discipline, you need to create habits that are healthy and stick to you. And some of it is mental. Like for me, right now, I am doing this stream and I have to be up in the morning, but I'm thinking, you know what? I planned for this. I have everything that I need ready in the morning for me to just roll out of bed, brush my teeth, brush my hair, take like a 5 minute shower because I took one before I started streaming, and I pretty much have a grab and go breakfast. So with that, I'm taking responsibility of it is possible that I will go to bed a little late tonight, but at least I'm going to gain a couple of extra sleep minutes because I have taken care of the stuff that I do in the morning. I have started some of it to save me at least 25 minutes of my morning routine. So that's me outsmarting my circumstance. So freedom is great, it's amazing, because you are granted an opportunity to be wild and come up with things. Like, I think innovation is possible to a greater extent because of freedom. But at the same time, we have become, our egos have gotten out of control to where we feel like we can be self made when it comes to being a successful person. Like some rich people who say that they are self made, like, no, motherfucker. You needed the assistance of society, you needed the help of everyone else. You're still part of a village. The only difference is that the village has severely dispersed and we don't have the same degree of closeness that we used to. But in the grand scheme of things, there needs to be discipline because humans are social creatures. So therefore, you're always going to be dependent upon the contributions of others in your life, whether you want to accept it or not, direct or indirect. So, so when it comes to freedom as a woman, it's it's pretty dangerous because when you start accomplishing things, I feel like you start getting this false sense that you're on top of the world, but you fail to acknowledge that you're actually in a pretty vulnerable position. And then when I think about that, I actually get frightened. It's like I hope that I can always rely on having, like, in the same manner that I have nice, great, influential females, although a handful, just like I don't have many males who I know that I'm super close with, but at least I hope that I can count on that balance, especially male intervention, because I missed out on that when I was growing up. But now that I have had that present in my adult years, it's like, damn, I am so grateful that there is such a thing as guys because when I observe the way they take care of things, it's like, oh yeah, guys do not tend to pay attention to petty stuff like women tend to pay attention to. Like, for instance, my boyfriend, he has been wearing the same shit ever since I met him. And what I mean by that is he's not thinking about, like, he's a minimalist type of person. And for me, I am a minimalist in certain things, but in other things, I have an absolute obsession. And you guys know that my absolute obsession, for instance, are leggings. Like, I keep getting them, even though it's been like months since I've gotten new ones. But when I think about it, I have this urge to see abundance. When I was a student, I used to buy like 10 notebooks at a time, even though I only really needed three or four. Something about possessing a lot gives me stability. And as a woman, that's something that we look for. That's something that we crave, stability. But at the same time, because we have that freedom now, it's like I have been empowered with a job and having resources. But when I think about what everything that I have gotten means to me, it's like, this is not important. This is not what's filling my soul with joy. Like, I am getting rid of so much stuff now. And I'm like, how did this happen? How did I end up with a mountain of just stuff that's there that years pass by and I don't even use? So when I think about it, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I fell victim to social influence. Like sometimes people say, "Oh, have you heard about I don't know, leggings that have a pocket?" And I'm like, "Leggings have pockets? Shit, I need them." Something stupid like that. So when I think about it, I learned to separate myself from those things. Do not let ads influence you. Like they're all over YouTube, they're all over Facebook, everywhere there's an ad. Someone is trying to sell you something. Just because you see that and there's a neat story behind it doesn't mean that you have to succumb to it. So there goes that freedom again. You have the freedom to spend or not spend on whatever it is that you want or don't want. So that is good, but at the same time, we are failing to invest on the stuff that's actually useful. And we don't realize that on some instances until it's too late. So I totally see what you mean when it comes to freedom and how it's been detrimental. Definitely. So hopefully my rambling was worth it and made sense, but that's what I think. Asia struggles with suicide bad, but not in Africa for the most part. Okay. You can not have luxurious hair without discipline. Absolutely. This has been me disciplining myself to resisting the urge to cut it. Additionally, I try to eat well